Hello everyone. In this tutorial series we will be going over VFX and kind of rendering area and category. We're going to be looking into depth expressions and how to use them and what we can do with them, and some simple VFX setups for force field, an X-ray, and then just like some weird material that kind of gives you an idea of like what's going on underneath the hood. So I hope to keep this short, simple, sweet, to the point. Let's get going. So before we get started, actually, we're just going to bring up the Unreal Engine's documentation on depth expressions. We explain what they are, get an idea. If we look at this, depth fade will be probably the first thing we do. You can see how it intersects between the two shapes, and you get a little bit of pixel opacity going on there. If you scroll down, we're going to look at pixel depth, which if you look at this plane on the ground, they colored from red to green based on distance in the scene, or the pixels distance in the scene. And then down here we have actual scene depth, which if you read the difference is that the pixel depth can only sample at the pixel, but this can look through the pixel into the whole scene, and that's why we're getting all these other values. So we're gonna learn how we can exploit that to our advantage. All right, let's go. Inside of a third-person template project, you can do yours in first person if you want, but this is what I prefer to do. We're going to go into our content section and we're going to create a new folder. We're just going to call it VFX, and this will be like our little template library for our stupid little VFX functions and materials that we're going to work with today. All right, let's create a new material. We're going to call it M. Actually, which was the first one we're going to do? Was it depth fade? Let's do depth fade first. All right, cool. We'll do M depth fade intersection. That's what we want. So in our material, first thing we want to do is select it, and we're going to go from surface opaque. We want it to be a translucent material, and then we're going to grab the depth fade node, and once that updates, there we go. All right, depth fade. You see we got a fade distance here. We'll look into that. Let's do emissive color. Sorry, I'm looking at my other screen because I did a bunch of this stuff the other day and I got all these examples to work with. So let's get some vectors. Threes, you can hold down the number 3 and click, and that'll give you a little shortcut here. Then you can double click on these, and we're going to make it white. So that'll give us values of 1, and we'll leave the other one at black for now. We want a lerp. If you hold L, you can lerp and click. Otherwise, you can just right click and search lerp for linear interpolate. Plug this into the alpha. We could go with base color, but let's do emission for now. See if that works. And next thing we want to do is go up here into window. And where's that place actors? There we go. Place actors. We're going to grab into shapes, and we want a sphere. Drag that into there. Let's make it bigger. 2 by 2 by 2. Close this window. Drag our depth fade material onto there, and let's zoom in on it and see what's going on. So now, as you can see, we got this black area intersecting with the ground. So the closer to the ground is that shape, that's our depth fade. And so if we open up our material, right here we have fade distance. So you can increase this fade distance to say 200, hit save, and we should see this grow. Yeah, and so it grows. You can also change the opacity and whatnot. So just keep that at 100. So what's really useful about this, because in VFX and probably other things too, is that whenever you can create or normalize a value or range to 0 and 1, you can then do cool things with it, like multiply, add, subtract, and like multiply by colors or textures and patterns. And that's where we do a lot of the VFX stuff, is in that 0 to 1 range, and then manipulate it with things like textures. So we'll do that next. But you can see it's a useful mask. If you want to multiply it by color, let's start with colors. So in this little box, we'll say, all right, we want a base color. Colors are, again, 3 is your vector. So like, let's say blue. we're like, okay, we want to multiply where it's white. So actually we want to flip this. Let's flip this. So if we switch these like that, and now, so where it's white, you see that we have values of 1, which means when you multiply it, it'll give you something. But if you multiply by 0, it's nothing. So it's a mask. So it's kind of like a cutout template stencil. So anything in the black won't receive color when we multiply it. So right here, when we go to multiply our base color values into the emissive, hit save, and we'll take a look at that. And boom, look what we got. Nice little blue there. Next thing you can do is say, like, let's plug that into the opacity. So that alert value into our opacity map. And you'll see what's going to happen next. Also, for fun, let's take this color, and then one of the super first secrets you learn in the Unreal Engine's VFX is you can go numbers greater than 1, and you get, when you're in an emissive value, it glows, which once, I don't know, when I first figured that out, I was like, oh, that's so cool. But that was many years ago. So, all right, now we got our opacity, so we're not, or we're translucent where it's black, and now when you drag this around, you can see how it intersects, kind of. We're going to improve this real quickly by going in here. We're going to reduce our fade distance to, say, 50. And an important step here, once this loads, is we're going to change it to two-sided materials so you can see the inside of it, like the inside of the ring. And you'll kind of see what we're up to. Boom. Check that out. So you can see this would be useful for all kinds of little things. But what's really cool about it is when you intersect with a wall. So imagine you're doing like a shield, like, or an explosion energy wave thing. It takes the shape of that. And so now just really quickly, I'll like show you something that you can do once you have that. We can say like hold T and press this to get a texture. Let's go in here and texture. Oh, what am I doing? Let's do clouds, because I think that's like one of the built-in textures. Sky clouds, sure. And if you don't know, you can do a panner, which is P. Plug that into the UVs, give it a speed on the up axis, which is Y in this case, of like 0.2. And now we're going to multiply that by our blue color, and we'll see what happens. Probably want to increase it by a power node to give it a more juice. Check that out. All right, save it, take a look, and now you've got this interesting effect. It's not super good because it's obviously like going a weird direction, but you can see how this is like the start of custom visual effects, if you will. Anyway, so I just want to show you guys that's the scene depth node, or not scene depth, depth fade node, which is very useful, like even with like plants and whatnot. So, and rocks and stuff that's in the water. So imagine you have a rock in the water and you want it to fade beneath the surface of the water. You just use that depth fade and play with the opacity values, because you can control where it's opaque and translucent. All right, so that's the first one. On to the next one. We're making this quick. Okay, next material we're going to make really quick is going to be scene depth. So we're going to call it m_scene depth. Whoopsie. Open that up. I think we still need it to be a translucent default lit. I don't know if we need two-sided. We'll find out. So again, hold 3. We're going to make 2 colors this time. Let's make this like a green, a bright green. And here we're going to make like an orange. Oh no, annoying orange. Orange, you glad to see me? Anyway, that's an old one. Okay, what was it? Scene depth? Alright, we got a scene depth node. Coordinates. What do we want to do? Let's do some stuff. I got a video window over here to see, so that's what we're going to do. All right, first things first, we're going to divide. This will be the distance, the view distance for like how far into the scene do you want your range of colors to be spread across, if that makes sense. The example we use is 2048. You can put a bigger number or a smaller number and tweak it to your preferences. We use then a power, and then we clamp, is my guess. We almost always clamp after using power nodes because we want a range of 0 to 1. So basically you have a distance of 2000 from whatever your object is with this material or the camera, and then you're going to normalize that range from 0 to 1 so that the colors that are closer will be either orange or green depending on what you pick, and then the ones that are farther away will be orange or green, as I said, depending upon what you pick. Cool. Let's autosave. And again, we want to lerp. Check it out. And the question is, will this be the correct color on top or bottom? I don't know. Let's find out. We can always switch them. And the alpha, is that donkey? I'm going to guess emissive color. That looks upside down. Who cares? Let's test it. Okay, once again, into the windows, place actors, shapes, cube, pull that up into our scene. Let's make it much bigger by 3. That's too big in my opinion, but who cares? Drag it over here. I'm gonna delete this wall and this wall. Freedom. And then drop our new material on there. Whoa, that's glowy. Very cool. Drag that up, and if we hit play, we can go look at it, and now you can see in the distance that the far away things are the different color and the closer things are lighter green. I'm actually going to change this so we can see better. I think we should change orange on top. Don't cross the beams. Maybe we should change our distance. Let's see what happens if we do this. 1024. Save. Play. Oh, too short, so we want to go bigger number. 40. 48. No, 96. 40, 96. Power of 2. Come back. There we go. It's very slow today. Very slow all days. Still not as red as I would like it, but you can see in the distance how the pixels are doing their thing. The shapes, whatever. Let's put it back to 2048. Let's just make it darker. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we need to push more towards the red. Red, orange. More color variation between the red and green. Is that more visible? A little bit. Stuff that's further away, green. Stuff that's closer, yellowish, you can tell. But you can use that to get the distance from an object in materials, and you can do weird stuff with that. But I just want to show you guys that. That's scene depth. Moving on. Moving right along. Okay, so I was going to try to get the X-ray video in this one, but I think it's going to take too long because we got to work with a custom depth buffer thing. So instead, we're going to do a little bonus thing where we add some spice to our little intersection material for like a get you started on making a shield VFX. And to do that, we're just going to open this back up. Not sure why this is black all of a sudden. Oh, because we're multiplying by 0. Plug that back in. So what we're going to do is add Fresnel. Okay, so that's back. So let's grab a Fresnel node. And if you don't know what Fresnel is, you can think of it as kind of like the glowiness on an orb. And you'll see what I'm saying in a little bit. We'll get there. We want to add, I'm just going to unplug this for now because it's kind of confusing. Add our Fresnel to our shape plug that into emissive color. That doesn't look right to me. Did I do that right? Nope. Hold up. What did I do differently? Into the depth fade. Oh, that's right. That's why. I forgot. We want to do this on the whole thing. Okay, so let's say I should have done this in a fresh material. If we just want to get rid of our lerp, remove all this stuff, start fresh. Depth fade, Fresnel, color. Let's move this up, unplug everything. So we only have our three things. We got our color, our Fresnel, and our depth fade. Okay. We're going to add our Fresnel to our depth fade and then multiply that by the color. Move this stuff out of the way. Sorry, it's kind of messy. I should have just started a new material. But we're doing it live. Okay. It's not quite right, but we'll take a look at it for now. Save that. Let's see what we're working with. Okay, so this is inverted. So we got to invert this depth fade to do. Generally, when you invert things, you do a 1-. Ooh, cool. And let's add that. What's that looking like? Okay, so we got our ridge and we got our darkness, and the Fresnel is actually this edge effect around the sphere. So we want this to be kind of transparent. Let's try plugging this into transparency. That looks much better. You can also start previewing nodes if you right click on the node and it'll turn blue, and then stop preview. All right, blue glowy. Let's take a look at that. All right, cool. So that's kind of like the beginnings of a shield, right? Let's make this 4. That's pretty cool. So simple trick we can do to make this a little juicier is literally just take that texture we had that we're panning, and in the emissive we want to multiply. I wonder what happened if we change that to the opacity. Just curious. So you can use whatever texture you want. I just use the clouds one because it's included in the starter content, and like that's kind of the beginning of a basic shield, and you can add more stuff. Like say we want to add a texture, another texture. Maybe we got like a hex grid or something. Let's look for grid. Just regular. How about hex? Honey? Grid. What do we got? A tile? Do you think this would work? Maybe? Maybe? Let's try it. Should we multiply or should we add? That's the other thing. You can just play around, experiment. That'll give you a white grid. If you want color, you have to multiply. So let's multiply. Problem is this will multiply before or after it's already kind of been used, if that makes sense. So what you want is to multiply before we mask it. So try here and start preview node here. Well, it's not showing anything. That's awesome. That's fun. And then we'll just add. See if this works. Kind of have an idea of what we're going for. I'm just trying to get a checker grid to show up on it. Stop previewing. Whoopsie. So I don't think the preview works because it's a translucent node, I'm guessing, or material. Multiplying color by the depth fade. Maybe if we just multiply by the color and then just delete that and then drag that and add. Okay, roughly what I was going for. So yeah, so you can see we got this grid pattern. It's chilling. could increase the UVs to 2, 4. I'll give you more grids. You could add noise to it. You could make them move around. Out of curiosity, what happens if we copy this panner and throw it in here? This is bonus time at this point. Coordinate was 40. Just keep that 0. Alright. Something like that. Just simple, fast. And you can go as deep into it as you want. I just want to show you guys the scene depth and depth fade. There's also the pixel depth, which is roughly the same, but it doesn't go through things. And I'll probably do an X-ray material if you guys like this. So like and subscribe. Peace.